Rikamo pimbae, tokangi maboko, tozali kotalae. Tolati mokuya ata malobate, Congo na Pan-Afrika baleli. Oh, Medi Ben Baka, Medinzela na yo ya Patonyonso, Medinzela na yo ya Lumumba, Medinzela na yo ya Che Guevara, Medinzela na yo ya Malcolm X, Medinzela na yo ya Umniope, Medinzela na yo ya Felix Mumie, Medinzela na yo ya Nguyen Van Choi, Medinzela na yo ya Camilo Cienfuegos, Medinzela na yo ya Oji ya Enda, Medinzela na yo ya Camilo Torres, Medinzela na yo ya Abdelkader, Medinzela na yo ya André Machua, Medinzela na yo ya Simon Kimbangu, Medinzela na yo ya Albert Lutuli, Medinzela na yo ya Boganda. Oh, oh, ya tiers-monde. Oh, oh, ya libération, ya pas peuple. Un vieux que je considère toujours jeune m'a dit un jour: mon petit, tout homme doit mourir un jour, mais toutes les morts n'ont pas la même signification. Oh, Medi Ben Barka.
Yes, Uhuru. Uhuru, everyone. Uhuru, comrades. Just want to welcome you to this historical day, African Martyrs Day. It's not a day like any other day. It's a day to remember all African freedom fighters. It's a day to remember all the Africans who shed our blood for our freedom, for every little progress we made since 1415, since the assault, since the colonial assault that brought into existence this current global colonialism that we all suffering under, have to be remembered. And I salute Chairman Omali for taking the leadership to bring a resolution in 1981 in the first Congress of the African People's Socialist Party to declare that the 21st of February has to be remembered everywhere in Africa, in Europe, in the US, wherever Africans are located, as African Martyr Days. Malcolm X was assassinated, as you know, on that day, and he stood for the liberation of all Black people, all African people, and indeed for all oppressed people. And we think this day is a day that we're calling on you, wherever you are, to join us to begin to commemorate, to remember every day, every year, this important day. Because as we remember the African Martyrs Days, is a message we're sending to ourselves, to our oppressors, to the whole world, that no terror, no brutality, no intimidation of any kind will force us out of this road for African national liberation. Because on this road we are, I have embarked on, we have no doubt that victory is certain. No doubt victory is going to be ours. and its future to engage in assassinations and, as I said, brutality and things like that, because the African Revolution will not be killed. African Revolution will triumph, will win. And we are confident on this road, and that's why we're calling on you, wherever you are, every 21st of February. If there is no one to initiate that, anyone who's listening, wherever you are, you can initiate that. We want our community to be transformed, to become a community where martyrs are remembered in many ways, in 1,000 ways. You know, uh, through songs, paintings, changing the name of the roads, calling our football teams after our martyrs. There are thousands of ways we can remember, but it has to be part of our culture. Wherever you go in the Black community, African martyrs have to be present, overwhelmingly present. And this way, not only will remember those who came before us, but also will keep the spirit of African Revolution alive, and also we continue this tradition of remembering all African martyrs. So today we're going to have a wonderful, wonderful program. We're going to have Chairman Omali, the leader and founder of the African People's Party and the Uhuru movement. It's going to be in the program today. We're going to have the director of Africa, basically the director of African People's Listening work that's taking place in Africa. That's chairman of our party in South Africa, Tafarie, Mugeri, is going to be with us. We're also going to have the president of INPIDA, comrades based in San Diego, President Masa also it's going to be with us. So we have a really, 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 really rich program. And before we go any further, I'll be asking anyone who wants to join us, please begin to share, get the links, paste it in your groups, tell your friends they cannot miss this program. The African Martyrs Days, they cannot miss it. Ask them to join, and also begin to not just to like, also share widely, so that more people can be part of this wonderful program. As I said, these African Martyrs Days is really just a powerful one. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through slides. We have the slide of on African Martyrs we developed at least a year before, and we'll be going through that. And this way you can also see the images of some of the African martyrs that you're familiar with. Some of them you might not be familiar with them, but the point is that there's so many of them. In fact, this program is a developing program, and hopefully between now and the next year, we're going to have an advanced program where we can include all the new developments, which will not be included in today's presentation, but we have definitely developed from what we did last time. So if we can begin to show the slide. And then the first slide, that's our Chairman Omali, as I said, the founder and the leader of the African People's Party, also the Uhuru movement, but also of the African Revolution, because nobody talks about the revolution unless you see the African People's Party. And if they do, they won't be able to articulate the revolution from the 60s. All the works needs to be done, and how we can move in the future, how we can make the African Revolution victorious. Chairman is the one who has laid out for any African, so anyone who will talk about revolution in our time, they have to go through Chairman's work, and it's just fundamental. So we salute Chairman for that. The first Congress of the African People's Party in 1981 adopted the Day for African Martyrs to be the 21st February annually. As I said in my introduction, every year where we are, we should be commemorating, celebrating the African Martyrs Day. And that's the day they killed Malcolm X. As you know, Malcolm X was a giant. He was a giant of African Revolution. And he terrified the United States imperialism, not just that, the French imperialism. I remember when he went to France, De Gaulle, the president of France, refused Malcolm X to come out of the plane. You know, that's how significant Malcolm X was. And today, if you come to London, you know, you will see he's remembered. Not just Africans, Muslims around the world, they consider Malcolm X as one of the giant of anti-colonial struggle. Or to our fallen heroes who gave their lives for African freedom and independence all around the world. February 21st, the day of assassination for Malcolm X. Or the context for these events, the FBI raid on Chairman Party and Uhuru movement, July 29, 2022. And I think it's really significant for people who are watching this to understand the assassination of Malcolm's and the attack on the chairman, Omali and the attack on the African People's Socialist Party. They are part of the same phenomenon to deprive the African national liberation movement of key leadership at a decisive moment in history. That's basically what the United States tried to do on the 22nd, on the July 29th or 22nd. Yes, or Chairman and the party were attacked because of the 50-year fight for the total liberation of Africa and African people everywhere. And I really people to pay attention to that. We say total liberation of African and African people everywhere. That's really key fundamental point to understand. It means that African people are attacked everywhere, every day, every time. Right? And when we talk about total liberation of Africa, with understanding that Africa being the foundation of the modern world by the assault that's began in 1419, and we attacked every day, not just when we say it, every day. Yes, sir. African people have always resisted the colonial assault on our people in Africa and abroad. And African Martyr Days, that's one of the things we'll be bringing into light. All these attacks from 15 up to present, moment we're talking, we're going to dig all this, if you are, we're going to bring all this so we know every battle and we commemorate all the African martyrs from those battles. African people were kidnapped and forcibly dispersed around the world, building wealth, prosperity for Europe and white people. We're not just talking about now, from 1415, just the concept of wealth, prosperity, change, just changed dramatically, but because we are going through it, people might assume it was always like that. It wasn't. The concept of Europe was created. The concept of white people was created. They were newly created on the assault on Africa. Were African people stolen resources and labor create life for the white colonizers. You remove African labor, you remove African stolen resources, you will not have capitalism at all. You will not have the United States, you will not have Europe, as we understand them today to be, lands of wealth and powers and things like that. You will not have them. If you remove African labor, African resources from this paradigm, you will not have that. Or wherever we have been forcibly dispersed, we are colonized as one African nation. And for everyone watching, if you're new, that's part of the struggle we're involved in to win all Black people and also our allies and also all the progressive forces, including even our oppressors, that we are African people. We are part of one African nation that we are building through our struggle for African national liberation, because it's only through the liberation of our African nation, a united African nation, that Africans can begin to know what's dignity or freedom or development or prosperity or love, genuine love, and things like that will be. Yes, we have fought the colonial mode of production built on our stolen labor, resources, and blood. And that is a major breakthrough, the colonial mode of production. You're going to hear people talking about it, but you have to be the privileged one or to say the informed one, to let the world know where it came from. That is definitely innovation the chairman came with to characterize what we're going through. The whole world economy sits on foundation of colonial mode of production, not the policy, but mode of production. It means everything you see around you, everything you see around you is being produced through this mode of production, which requires violence, permanent violence, theft, murder, imprisonment, humiliation of African people. That's mode of production. These no symptoms, but mode of production. That's how everything's being produced. Or the African People's Socialist Party leads the struggle for African liberation anti-victory. I think these a march against the G20 in London. I think the poster you're looking at. Yes, word. I can't believe I see this company. I don't know how. Yeah, I thought it was our pictures, but anyway. Yeah, I begin to see all our stuff being sold on the internet. I see them with these parasitic companies. One of them is that one you see. Yes. Yeah, that's just it's parasitism. It's our struggle, you know. We should all, yeah. Or saluting 600 years of our African martyrs who always fiercely resisted European colonialism. And as you can see, the Bayesian people that's in Sudan, they resist European invasion. In fact, they are known for fighting the Romans, you know, early, of this Christian era. So we resisted colonialism for a long time, But in fact, is part of the African nation will unify all our history. So we will be able to talk about history from emergence of human beings up to, modern times, no gaps whatsoever. Or Queen Zinga, the legendary Queen Zinga you all heard about in the 1600 led armies to fight the Portuguese assault on Angola. And what I like is that she's commemorated. I'm not sure what is being written where this statue is, but in Angola, they erected a huge monument in honor of this freedom fighter, Queen Zinga. You can see African women led the struggle from day one. In fact, not only led the struggle, basically lay out the basis of what the leadership should be. Someone fighting, resisting against colonialism. This will basically is represented. To be an African leader, not just in the past, even today, you have to be fighting colonialism all the time. There is no such thing as ceasefire and peace against colonialism. It doesn't exist. Yes, sir. Queen Mother Yeshitela of Ghana was a powerful resistance leader in Ghana. In fact, from what I understand, is that in Ghana, the parliaments of the men basically, they agreed to do a deal with the British, and Queen Mother Yeshitela, as a leader also of the people, but also of the women there, say we are not uniting what the men have decided to do. We're going to resist. We're going to fight on against the British invaders, and she did it successfully. The Zulu people of Southern Africa built an army of 20,000 and powerfully fought the British colonizer for 100 years. I'm sure the army of Zulu was more than that. And there is one battle where we defeated the British. I'm not sure if I pronounced the name in Swaziland, but I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Director Tafarie will definitely tell us. But that was a magnificent battle. We defeated the British colonizers. In fact, Hollywood made a film out of it. People should know, this should be known everywhere, that we fought battles, we also won battles, and so this way, new generation, they can look at those battles and get the inspiration they need so we can move forward. Yes, we're in the Caribbean, the Maroons, wherever you go in the Caribbean, or even in London here, or in Paris, or in France, you talk to Black people, Martinique, Guadeloupe, they tell you how proud they are to be the descendants of the Maroons. And these kind of things we should commemorate. We should have streets, avenues, boulevard maroons right in the middle of Accra, in Lagos, in those places. We should have boulevards, streets, gardens, buildings, schools named after all these freedom fighters. And the list is inexhaustive. It's a long list, all these freedom fighters. But the maroons should be one of those names that is everywhere when you go to any black country in the world, because it's really, really part of the African personality. You can't have African personality outside resistance, and the Maroons are historical. They have made a great contribution to our proud history of resistance. Or in Brazil, the resistance leader, Zumbi, led wars and won liberated territory for African people, and he's just another legendary African freedom fighters, anti-colonial leader, because in Brazil is well remembered, and this kind of information we need to circulate everywhere. So when Zumbi is being commemorated or celebrated in Brazil, we can also be celebrating Zumbi everywhere, in Angola, and Benin, in Senegal, wherever we are. Zumbi should be our hero. He's not just the Africans in Brazil. Yes, we're on the island of Guadeloupe. The resistance fighter, Solitude, led the fight against the French colonial army while she was pregnant. She was hanged by the French after she had a baby. She is revered as an African martyr in the Caribbean. This should be popular. I mean, she was pregnant. Can you believe that? And she was hanged. The whole planet should know about that, because we have all these liberals going to Africa telling us about, women rights and things like that, when in the same times they believe profoundly in colonialism as the only mode of production that should be in our world. So we should definitely introduce Solitude. And I think it's just profound, for what she did, and as an example, not just for African women, but for all African people, particularly young people today. And by the way, there is this ongoing struggle in Martinique and in Guadeloupe right now. The French are trying to replace black people in Martinique and in Guadeloupe. They're organizing, immigration of white people in those places. And life is so expensive. For the same product sold in France, in Martinique and Guadeloupe, and so-called French Guyana, the product costs at least 4 times. You're going to buy bread, the same company, same bread, same name, but in Martinique and Guadeloupe, it's going to be 4 times, at least, more expensive, and that's for everything. Yes, we're victorious African Revolution of Haiti. And as you all know, the revolution of Haiti, that's a real revolution, because in school in Africa, we never heard about it. The only revolution we heard about was the French Revolution. They even taught us the French Revolution, the revolution of the oppressors, of the colonizers, one social class of the colonizers replacing another one, and the revolution of Haiti, that's a revolution at the foundation. That's a revolution against the colonial mode of production, when the French Revolution is a consolidation of a colonial mode of production. But the revolution of Haiti, that's against striking right at the foundation, right at the roots of colonialism as a mode of production. And they are profound lessons. But the point is, we should remember all the heroic leaders of African Revolution in Haiti. From Jean-Jacques Dessalines to Christophe, there are many of them. We should know the date of those fights, but we should commemorate this. And I have no doubt as we develop, we'll be able to celebrate, these African heroes throughout the African world. In Haiti, African Martyrs, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Toussaint Louverture were both assassinated by the colonizers. I'm sure you already know Jean-Jacques Dessalines warned Toussaint Louverture not to have faith in the colonizers, but Louverture didn't listen. He always believed he can have some kind of reform colonialism working with the French. And the French called for meeting, of the coast of Haiti, and he agreed to go to that meeting. Before you know it, the boats, set sail to France, and France, they put him in jail, in prison, with no heat. Just imagine that kind of assassination in a cold weather, African in cold weather. He froze to death. That's how he was murdered. And it's good for us just to remember that, so we know what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a system that requires permanent brutalization, permanent assassination, permanent killing of our freedom fighters, of our people, permanent genocide of our people. That's colonialism. You know, that's what we do in this program, to remember all our freedom fighters, hold them high, presence, permanently presence in our community, in our minds, in our lives. This way, we know giving up. We are not, abandoning anything until the final victory. And this way, everybody's informed. Everybody will be growing up in this kind of environment where we're fighting until we win. Real black power in our own hands. Until, as Garvey used to say, until the red, the red, black, and green flag of Garvey is on the heels of Africa. Or African Revolution of Haiti, victory in 1804. The victorious Haiti Revolution defeated Napoleon's imperialist army, the strongest army of its time, and established the first liberated African state and first workers' state in the world. This should be a classic study by all politicians in the world, but we have to set the example ourselves. In liberated Haiti, slavery was abolished by an African government. African and oppressed people from anywhere in the world were given safe haven in Haiti, and white people were prohibited from owning land. Over the years, Haiti was brutally attacked by French and U.S. imperialism, which forced Haiti to pay $90 million in pure gold to France. That's how France was able to build Eiffel Tower. In fact, everything in France, everything you see is built like that, through our genocide, through our stolen resources, and so on. The struggle for national liberation in America took a qualitative leap because of the Haitian Revolution. You're talking to Bolivia, you're talking to Venezuela, you're talking to Mexico. All the struggle for national liberation, gained a tremendous momentum because of this African Revolution that took place in Haiti, and it changed the world. Despite colonialism was maintained around the world because Haiti was alone. U.S. changed sides. Napoleon was forced to sell. He couldn't maintain a self-choice colony in America, like the Missouri state and New Orleans, all these kind of places. That's how the United States grew bigger overnight because of the struggle of the African people in Haiti. Yes, tremendous implication for the world, and he influenced a lot of struggle around the world. A lot of struggle up to Afghanistan. A lot of struggle around the world were influenced by the great Haiti Revolution. Or Gabriel led a rebellion in Virginia, 1800s. Inspired by the Haiti Revolution, he worked to raise an army of 1,000 people, 1,000 African people. I don't know. There are a lot of people who carry the name of Gabriel. I'm sure they don't link that to the freedom fighter Gabriel that we love, that we want the whole world to know. So people were carrying the name of Gabriel, knowing that Gabriel, the real Gabriel, is the one that fought the colonial monopoly action. Yes, or an army, yes. 1822, Denmark Vinci, another freedom fighters. He led an uprising in South Carolina. Also inspired by the Haitian Revolution, Telemark is an African martyr. These are the people that say their names should resonate throughout the African world, indeed throughout the world, because I know you go around the world, some countries, they like to show solidarity with Africa or African liberation struggle. They have names on the street, but they don't really go behind, the names confined to the Berlin Conference borders, we have to push everyone to go beyond that, because we're talking about 600 years of colonial assault on African people. So Telemark is one of those African martyrs whose name should be resonated everywhere. Or a great African martyr, Nat Turner, 1831, he led a powerful rebellion in Virginia with the slogan, "Strike at night and spare no one." That's wonderful. I mean, and I'm not sure who designed this painting, but there is a painting full of ideas, and full for commitment, yes, leadership natural, you know, and it's just one of those great Africans we need to commemorate and also inspire for people to emulate around the world today. Or Africa, the Kenyan Land and Freedom Party, the Mau Mau, 1952-1960, for the British colonialism. We always believe the Mau Mau had a profound impact, because you don't just judge the Mau Mau for what they've done in Kenya. You go see the impact, just like the Palestinian impact outside Palestine. That's what you have to look at. The impact of the Kenyan Land and Freedom Party outside Kenya was huge. I remember Cabral going to work. I think at that time he was in Angola, although he originated from Guinea-Bissau, but he was called by one of the colonizers, checking on him if he was a Mau Mau, or if he knew for any Mau Mau, in Angola. Of course, Cabral said he didn't know for any Mau Mau, but he was a leading Mau Mau, and Kwame Nkrumah, the great Kwame Nkrumah, was able to force the British to make concessions, because if you look at the time Kwame Nkrumah appeared, or appeared to intensify the struggle for national liberation in Ghana, that was the time the Mau Mau were fighting with weapons they made themselves, as you can see on this image, forcing the British to make a choice, fight to one front, not many front of an African national liberation movement. So the Mau Mau contributed to that, and the prime minister of Britain at the time, Harold Macmillan, toured Africa just to see for himself, and he came back in London here in the House of Commons in Parliament. He told him there is a wind of change in Africa. Basically, there is a new movement in Africa that can't be defeated, and the Mau Mau were the core of that. So commemorating the Mau Mau is just a great honor to do. Yes, we're led by African Martyr Dedan Kimathi. The Mau Mau army and the Kikuyu people were rounded up, tortured, and murdered by the British. You can see, the counter-insurgency, the military response by the British colonizers to our genuine struggle for freedom. And the chairman said many times, it's illegal when you're colonized to be free. You can see that. The people who are under the guns, they are freedom fighters. They're fighting for freedom, for liberty, our democracy, whatever you call it, but self-determination. And then you have the colonizers putting guns over our heads, over our bodies, and they're the one going around the world. They're saying what they do for freedom. Of course, freedom for the colonizers to maintain colonialism, freedom to loot Africa, to kill Africa with no accountability whatsoever. So the freedom of the colonizers is no freedom for us. It's just different. Freedom for the colonizers, it means colonialism, as usual. That's basically what freedom for the colonizer was. So here, Dedan Kimathi on the left, you can see with his locks. And they decide to keep the locks until Kenya is free. They will not cut their locks, And apparently, this is the only image they had of the great Dedan Kimathi. And Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana in the 60s, Kwame Nkrumah, as you know, he stood basically out. It was different from the rest of the African leaders at the time, because he's the one who carried out the vision of Garvey the way he understood it, fighting for one Africa, one African economy, one African high military command, one African foreign policy, That was Nkrumah, and we remember Nkrumah and the African People's Socialist Party today. And the leadership of Chairman Omali said that we're carrying that legacy of fighting for one Africa, one united socialist state of Africa. That's what the African People's Socialist Party is fighting for. We're African Martyrs, Patrice Lumumba, first leader for independence Congo. And as you know, right now, what's going on in Congo? And what's going on in Congo is directly the consequences of the assassination of the Patrice Lumumba, the consequences of the overthrow of the only anti-colonial government that Congo has ever produced since colonialism attacked Africa, and the United States killed the movement for autodetermination, for democracy, so to speak, in the Congo. So the United States is the primary responsible for all the killings taking place in the Congo as we're talking right now, because they killed the movement of the people led by Patrice Lumumba to bring anti-colonial solutions, to bring to put in place a government that will speed up the struggle of African unity and African basically self-determination, as you all know. And Nkrumah united with Lumumba to speed up the unity of Africa by signing an agreement, just like you see in West Africa between the leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, creating the AES, the Sahel states in that region. So Nkrumah and Lumumba signed that agreement already to make Ghana and Congo one country, one government. So, here, of course, Mobutu is not that far. Mobutu is like the Kagame of that time. So he was kidnapped, tortured with two other leading members of the government. The one on the left, you see that that is Okito. Okito was the president of the Senate. So you have the prime minister, you have the president of the Congo Senate, and you have Polo. You can't see Polo here. Polo is the youth minister. These are the three that were killed in Lubumbashi, cut into pieces, and the body put into sulfur acid. That's colonialism. They're not the only one killed this way, but to kill leaders of African people like that, I mean, that's profound statement that Africans cannot ignore. That's why they cannot be compromised with colonialism as a mode of production. And there is no peace between colonialism as mode of production and African people. It's permanent. The attack on us is permanent. Being leaders or not being leaders, we are being attacked is a permanent, and that's what Africa needs really to really understand why we're making this call for Africans to remember African Martyrs. Or African Revolution Tanzania. This is the great Robert Mangaliso, assassinated, but he was jailed first before the arrest of Nelson Mandela and others. He was already in jail in Robben Island. And he is the one who put the question of land on the map, basically, that the struggle was for the land. African people up to, as the indigenous people, as the owner, the legitimate owners of the land. Now the land is basically what we're fighting for. We need to get back our land, and all Africa is ours, and he came with slogan, Israelite, that's in Zulu, it means the land of Africa. And he say, Israelite Africa, basically Africa, Israelite, the land of Africa belongs to us. They developed that slogan that African People's Socialist Party also was inspired by and made it our own and popularized it, because you can go to France, you will see people wearing gloves with Africa Israel. The African People's Socialist Party took it there too. So Mangaliso was just a giant, and he was released after being poisoned. So they knew as he was released, he's going to die, just like the U.S. releasing black political prisoners and knowing that they have left only a few years left to live. Yes, well. African Martyr on our Zanyan front, Steve Biko, murdered by the colonizers. You know, Steve Biko just like the continuity of Robert's Mangaliso. And Steve Biko was killed in 1977. He was barely 33 years old, but he was already emerged as the one to unify the revolutionary movement inside Tanzania, because most of the leaders fled or were forced into exile or were imprisoned, and Biko emerged like the one capable to take the African revolution forward. A fearless African leader. Or Amilcar Cabral, African Martyr of Guinea-Bissau. And he was one of the last of the giants of the 60s that survived many assassination attempts. But he was killed just before the independence of Guinea-Bissau is declared. So 1972, just a month or a couple of months, something like that. The United States working for the Portuguese, and I'm sure working with the African colonialists in the region, because he was assassinated not in Guinea, but not in Guinea-Conakry. He was assassinated he wasn't assassinated in Guinea-Bissau, where he's from, and Cape Verde was assassinated in Guinea-Conakry. And there is no way you can get access to the leaders of his caliber with close collaboration, participation. And in fact, a year before, or the same year, from the same year, you were the eulogy to Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah died, as you know, in 1972. And Cabral read the eulogy for Kwame Nkrumah. And he said, Kwame Nkrumah didn't die of natural death. He died of treason. And that treason is the cancer of the African Revolution. He died of a cancer of betrayal. That's how he characterized it. Cancer of betrayal. And, you know, we can say more about that cancer of betrayal, you know, you know, opportunism, of all kind of sort, you know, African Revolution have been besieged by all kind of, you know, opportunism that definitely lead to the sellout to African struggle. But that could be something we can come back to. But that cancer of betrayal is something that definitely we cannot ignore. So that's Cabral, great for your reason as well. Yes, well, of course, Thomas Sankara, because most of the African leaders, you know, I was a child or something like that, or I wasn't born, but Sankara, yes, that's my time. You know, we were the young ones, you know, inspired by Sankara. He was just a young leader, and his picture, we captured that, you know, very well. And he said something like, it's better to have clean water for everybody than to have champagne for a few of us. And I never forget that slogan, you know, clean water for all instead of champagne for a few. That's what we see in Africa. You go to Abidjan, you go to Dakar, you go to Lagos, wherever you go in Africa, what do you see? Champagne for a few and no clean water for most of us. And Sankara, you know, that slogan, among other slogans. So, and he was killed by the French. And that was interesting. The government that killed him is a government of coalition between what they call the left and the right in France. So the left represented by Mitterrand, François Mitterrand, and the right represented by Jacques Chirac. So the two cohabitated. They have a government, François Mitterrand, the president, and Chirac from the right, the prime minister. And the two came together to kill Thomas Sankara with the betrayal of Blaise Compaoré, who is still alive today, is protected by one of the greatest sellouts in African history, Alassane Ouattara in Ivory Coast, you know. And yeah, so that's Sankara, great African leader. And today, you know, we have a new leaders like Traoré following up on his footsteps. So he's still alive. Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, assassinated by the U.S. government in 2011. And, you know, no one was pushing for African unity in the last, let's say, before his assassination, the last 10 years before that. than Gaddafi on the continent of Africa. He's the one calling for African to have a single currency. I forgot the name of it. By proposed one. He's the one who came with a satellite device for Africans not to be paying exorbitant fees to French, Germans, the British, and the US, so we can have our own satellite, giving us all the sound, the images we need, things like that. And as you know, it was overthrown by the United States government led by Obama. Neocolonialism killed him. And the consequences, as you know, weapons from Libya were distributed throughout to carry out the same agenda to destabilize Africa further. So that's Muammar Gaddafi. Or salutes African Martyr Marcus Garvey and the UNIA. Garvey died alone here in London, and he died because his movement was attacked and destroyed by the U.S. government. He was deprived. He didn't have access anymore to his organization, and that contributed to his health, the rapid deterioration of his health. He was also put in jail in the U.S. You combine all this, we have no doubt that Garvey died as African Martyr for being the source of inspiration of one of the greatest movement the Africans ever built, and which continue to inspire all of us. And in fact, as you all know, the African People's Socialist Party is directly a continuity of the Garvey's vision, as the chairman often said. So, yeah, he's a great martyr. Yes, we're. Marcus Garvey Movement, Convention of the Negro People of the World, New York, 1920, an organization of 11 million Africans, worldwide movements. And you also need to know many places like French-speaking colonies in Africa, Garvey movement wasn't allowed to be there. A movement exists there. They didn't always call themselves Garveyites. In fact, the colonizers did everything that you don't associate anything happening in most places of Africa with Garvey. So there isn't that consciousness that you are the Garveyites. You are part of that powerful movement we see in New York and other places throughout in Americas. So I'm saying that because I know before Lumumba, one of the anti-colonial leaders that's really revered today is Simon Kimbangu. And Simon Kimbangu know that he was arrested in 1921 and put in jail until his death in 1951, 30 years in jail. He was a Garveyite. You read the process, the British took him to court. The way his people, his followers dressed, that's Garveyite movement. And that's probably was the greatest, the beginning of mass movement, basically in the Congo. And that's the Belgian occupied Congo. If you go to the French occupied Congo, there's another leader that also shook the French, André Massoua. I don't have a picture of André Massoua. If I put a picture of André Massoua, you will know it. He just dressed as Garvey. He was locked up. He was put in jail too. I'm not sure if he died in jail, but just to say, the Garvey movement was profound. He went to places where people even today have no idea what they're looking at was the continuity of Garvey movement. Yes, we're. The Garvey movement built independent African institutions such as the Black Star Line and the Negro World newspaper, having our own newspaper, having our own companies, our own shipping line. No people can exist with our economy. Economy is the starting point. Instead of building the economy for the oppressors, Garvey decided to build the economy of our own. In the same process, also negating the economy of the colonizers, because with African labor and resources, you cannot have capitalism as we know it today, because permanent foundation is colonialism as a mode of production. Yes, we're. African Martyr. Garvey was targeted by the FBI with bogus charges of mail fraud. He was put in federal prison, then deported and died when he was only 56. See how young he was, and of course, Obama refused to pardon Garvey. As often the chairman say, what Garvey was doing, he had the right to do it. We didn't ask for pardon because what he was doing was legitimate. That was the duty of an African leader to organize for African national liberation. But Obama, who came to power with the vote of Black people, didn't give anything back to Black people. Just basic demand, pardon Garvey. He couldn't even do that. But he could overthrow Muammar Gaddafi. It's just the betrayal, the concept of betrayal Cabral was talking about. Yes, were the U.S. front of the African Revolution of the 60s. And you can see the chairman on the left, who just survived the assault from the FBI and the U.S. government. And on the right, you have the Pampers. Same period, but that's different location. So that just, in fact, the U.S. front is a capital, is a fundamental front of African national liberation for many reasons. One of the reasons is that the headquarters of the United States imperialism is in the U.S. And also, the U.S., you have the largest African working class, and you also have probably the largest educated African working class or population, I might say. Because when Africa is free, we're not going to start from scratch. We're starting from wherever African nation has their hands on, they have access on, they're able to bring in. So all those human and natural resources where Africans are located will contribute to speed up the industrialization of the African nation. So, and with 2 billion African people, you can see the liberation and development of Africa is going to be rapid, extremely fast. So that's why we are confident in our victory. Uhuru. Malcolm X, a great African martyr of the 1960s in the U.S., instigator of the urban anti-colonial Black Power movement. The leadership of Malcolm X was profound, and the United States attacked him. And as we were saying, when the U.S. government attacked the party and the chairman, we say it was an attack on Africa. You can see clearly the attack on Malcolm X was also an attack on Africa, because Malcolm X and Lumumba and Nkrumah and the leader of UPC, Fanon, you just see a progressive development for them to work together. And you already have there a potential, I might say even the government of Africa at the time, anti-colonial government, revolutionary government. So the United States, by killing all those leaders, they always knew what they were doing, prevent the coalition, as the leader of FBI said, of anti-colonial, African leadership. That's what the assassination of Malcolm X and Lumumba and the others at the same time meant also. Yes, Malcolm X brought the anti-colonial struggle of African people in the U.S. through the world state. That how strategic Malcolm X was. He understood the struggle in Cuba, the struggle in Vietnam, the struggle of Africa in the U.S., the struggle of Black people everywhere, and all of us people were part of the same trajectory, anti-colonial struggle, to get rid of the colonizers' domination for those colonized people everywhere, and the solidarity between the colonized people is a key, and Malcolm X understood that. And as you can see, Malcolm X with the leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro, or African Martyr, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., assassinated by the U.S. government. As you know, Martin Luther King was a leader that had a mass following and aware of the change in the world, of the history, the young people, anti-colonial young people, the anti-colonial movement developing, and the movement for civil rights and the anti-colonial movement. Martin Luther King could see all those things, and as it was predicted by the FBI leadership, should he abandon his obedience to the white liberal, he will become a contender, basically the messiah to unite the Black people, among other names the FBI pointed out. You can see definitely why. And he was at the Ghana's inauguration of Ghana independence in 1957. He was there. So he's aware of the anti-colonial movement, how it was moving. So he was assassinated by the United States government as well in 1968. Yes, well, that's Fred Hampton, African Martyrs, Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, assassinated by the U.S. government. You can see the significance of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark and the Black Panther Party, if you have a young people born and grew up under anti-colonial movement, revolutionary leadership, they grow fast, ready to assume their place in history fast in the early ages, stages of their life, barely 21, barely in the 20s, just young people, but already capable to lead anti-colonial movement. That's the benefit of having leadership, in our community that is there for a long time, and that's why basically they attacked the party, because now we are able to provide leadership to all young people growing up under the leadership of the party here in Africa, around the world. So you should expect capable young leaders emerging everywhere. Yes, yes, beautiful picture. That is when I see this, I see a history, developing, because the pose of a leader sitting like that, that's the Pharaoh kind of pose, that's leadership pose, so that's history basically. You can see African started, you can call it propaganda in antiquity, a long time. So that's beautiful. That's a European Union leader of the Black Panther Party. A great leader that provided leadership that was appreciated everywhere around the world, particularly in Vietnam. You might have seen the picture of the leadership of China with Xu Enlai, I think it was, with European Union. That's incredible. That's a significant. That's how people outside recognize the significance of the U.S. front of African national liberation struggle. Yes, yes, these we have a demand free all political prisoners. As you can see here, Edward Poindexter, Mutul Shakur, Jamil Abdullah Almin, Leonard Peltier, Nyanja Koli, Mumi Abu Jamal, John Laman, Jalil Mutakin. But now we can say Leonard Peltier, I think Mutul Shakur have been released, but the demand is still the same: freedom all, and the people of the world should definitely be mobilized, provide support, be in solidarity with the U.S. front, and demand all African prisoners to be released. And at least the fight the party is taking outside to the world, basically, because in these moments of a critical a crisis of imperialism, where the U.S. are saying, make America great again. And we have to remind the world that the United States is a prison of nations where Africans, freedom fighters, are in jail for fighting for being free. And they just something is, we're taking on is profound. So freedom all, yes, we're. And we salute the powerful victory. Common Leonard Peltier is home. I never forget, I saw images, no images, but slogans in France many years ago. Free Leonard Peltier. I didn't even know who he was. It's a long time. It's been, just more than 40 years. That's a long time. When you think, anyway, I won't go that way back. Yeah, we salute you, release comrade. Victory to indigenous people in America. We want them to get back to that land. Yes, we're movement speaking at Leonard Peltier rally in San Francisco in the 1980s. Yes, you can see our solidarity, our unity, unconditional solidarity with the indigenous movement, is from a long time. So I appreciate this picture that just validates our participation, our unity of the demand from indigenous people to get all the leaders to be free. Yes, we're. Here is a historical picture. Chairman launched the first Black Power Act, the first act of Black Power. This before the Panthers walked into the office. I don't remember if it was somewhere in Los Angeles they went to. It was captured in the film, but here basically is the first act of Black Power in December 15, 1966. Chairman Omali took down the racist mural that depicted in a grotesque way black people in St. Petersburg. So you can see here the mural basically is there on the chairman's hands, being held by none of comrades behind the chairman, and here the police grabbing to hold the chairman's hand. So yeah, definitely that was a great moment. Yes, great moment of African resistance. Yes, Chairman Yeshitela founded the African People's Socialist Party, formed May 1972. As we all know, people talk about struggle all the time. Struggle, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm in struggle. I'm conscious. People talk about black power. It's a lot of slogans, a lot of position. But the key thing is, if you don't have a revolutionary party, or your struggle, have no revolutionary conclusion, which has to be the people have to be, people have to have power. And a new government has to be put in place, led by African workers. And these can't happen just like that. You need a revolutionary party armed with a revolutionary theory. And the chairman responded by creating the African People's Socialist Party, because everywhere in the African world, revolutionaries have been killed, forced into exile. But the fundamental question, where is the revolutionary party? How does it look like? What does it do? That question was not answered. It was discussed everywhere in Africa, in the United States, and the chairman, responded by creating the African People's Socialist Party, the Party of African Revolution. Or the chairman founded the African Socialist International, and you will know we need to have the party everywhere on the ground, because for our struggle to go its full conclusion, which means the workers have to be in power everywhere, and the African unity has to happen under the leadership of the African working class. We need a party that carries that plan, that African plan of African unity and liberation through revolution, and the leadership of the African working class that includes all Africans on the planet. Because colonialism was born as an attack on all Africans on the planet permanently. So it requires that. So the African Socialist International, that's another project that the chairman, it's an African plan the chairman came with. Yes, the African People's Socialist Party is building the power of the governments. So if you don't prepare to govern, what in the hell are you doing? We can struggle, we can do a lot of things, as I said, we can get involved in spontaneous stuff. But the key thing is we need to govern ourselves. And this is no small thing. This historical demand and this historical duty, this is something that has to happen, that we need to govern ourselves. This will define free people. Free people, what they do, they govern themselves. People with dignity, what they do, they fight for the right to govern themselves. And which means having their own economy, having their own governments, having their own institutions, laws, and so on. And the Africans, like any other people on the planet, we have the universal right to do that. And that's what the party is doing right now in the US on the ground. If you go to St. Louis, you will see the evidence how the African People's Socialist Party is doing economic work. And in the leadership of DC owner, we tirelessly work, get economic plans organized, fight for victories, wherever the government is putting obstacles to our plans, to mobilize the African community, the party, to resist, basically to force the governments, to give place to our legitimate institutions, just like the victory over the Uhuru Cafe in St. Louis. The latest victory. So here, Black Power Blueprint, you should check this out. Go on the website, see how we're transforming St. Louis. Yes, yes, this is a picture, I think this is in Paris. I think that's probably 2012. You see the chairman, see DC owner, and the other comrades. I see Carrega there. Yes. Yeah, I see a lot of people there. So yes, that was we brought African Liberation Day in Paris, and Paris has never been the same, yes, we're long live SWAPO leader Sam Nujoma of Namibia, pictured here with Chairman Omali, as you all know. He passed away this month. He's a historical figure, a legendary leader of the African national liberation struggle in what is known as Namibia today, and he led SWAPO, the organization that fought the leaders of apartheid, because they're the one who were in control of Namibia until the victory of SWAPO. So, yeah, we salute you, Comrade Sam Nyoma. Here, of course, Sam Nyoma with Chairman. I'm not sure which year it was, but that was some time ago, over 15 years ago, I'm sure. Yes, well. FBI Right to Uhuru movement. That was 29th of July, as we said, and that was a serious attack on the African National Liberation Movement, because you see through history, they always attack our leaders, key leaders at critical moments, because they are hope to succeed so that they can derail our movement, our march towards total freedom. And that's what they did. And any attack on a strategic key African leader is an attack on African self. It's an attack on all Black people everywhere. You really have to internalize that this colonial system as a global mode of production attacks Africans permanently, attacks African leaders permanently too. We really have to consider that. So our resistance also has to be a permanent resistance. Yes, we're. And here, the chairman initiated Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, that was led by Chair Luwezi brilliantly, mobilizing daily everywhere, making sure that that we win this round of attack on our leadership, and that we did win this round. And the struggle is not over yet, because we are appealing against the sentence that the state imposed on us. And so we want your support. We want your continued support. Please go to handsofforu.org, see what you can do, what you can donate. You can volunteer your time, resources, and so on. But it's not over yet. We need your participation. We need your support, comrade. Yes, we're. And here you see the pictures of the three Uhuru leaders, chairman on the left, Chairwoman Phineas in the middle, and Jesse Neville, the chair of Uhuru Solidarity Movement. You see all the three leaders here. So please, as I said, it's not over yet. We want you to join today, donate today. Please go on the website, handsofforu.org, get the news, spread it to your network. So the next round so the victory is even more sweet, decisive, so we can push them back, definitely. Yes, we're. And here, the day of the sentence, free speech trial of the century took place in the federal court in Tampa. So this is our way to thank everybody who contribute in one way or the other to make sure that this time the state is incapable, is not able to destroy our movement, to destroy our leadership. And we thank you for everything you contribute towards the success of this campaign, wherever you are. We thank you and we value your contribution dearly. Uhuru, the U.S. government lied and lost. The Uhuru movement told the truth and won. Yes, it's the fight between the truth and lie, the lies of the colonizers and the truth of the colonized, and we won. Yes, Uhuru. Touch one, touch all, and that's one slogan the chairman develops. And this slogan is traveling. Here in South Africa, right there in South Africa, with our comrades there on the street of South Africa, showing unity and solidarity with the assault on our chairman, on our on the whole three, and the leader of solidarity, PDS and Jesse Neville, right there in the street of South Africa. We salute the comrade in South Africa. Yes, word. Touch one, touch all. Yes. One Africa, one nation. And as you know, this is the flag of African Revolution. Yes, word. Yes, so we're going through all the slides. I hope the time, we're doing okay with the time. 20 minutes, or I went over. I can't really see my timetable yet, my program. So I just want to thank you for your patience. May had one more thing I forgot to say. The song you heard in the beginning, The Immortals. This song was written by Franklin Bukaka in the Congo, Brazzaville. He was assassinated, and the song was produced in late 60s, I think 68, I think, because he doesn't sing about Martin Luther King, but he sings about Malcolm X. He sings about the Cuban leaders, the leaders of Algeria, Ben Barka in particular. He was a leader of Morocco, National Liberation Movement, kidnapped in the middle of Paris in France. He disappeared. We never found his body up to this moment. Ben Barka, and this the singer, Franklin Bukaka, I consider him as the African internationalist because to sing all his song about his struggling songs is about the workers and the peasants, about revolution, about internationalism, about solidarity between the oppressed. He's just magnificent. He put his voice, talent to the service of revolution. So he was killed. He was murdered, targeted in 1972. He was barely 33 years old, I think. Yes, well, I just want to say that because I had that as one of the points I need to share with you. Yes, so we're gonna carry on with our program. So what we're gonna move to. I'm gonna basically call on Comrade Tafarie Mugeri, who is the chair of the African People's Study Party in Azania, but he's also the director of the work to build a party throughout Africa. And he's taking on this job magnificently. So I just want to, salute him and, ask everyone to welcome him so he can take us through the next session of the program. Oh, Director Tafarie.
Seems to be. Uhuru, Luwezi.
Yes, Uhuru Africa.
Uhuru Africa. Thank you very much, Luwezi. It's a bit late here, but and it's dark. I didn't. Let me try to move this thing around so I can get a little bit of light. Yes. Uhuru, Luwezi. That was really profound. That presentation. Actually, we are gonna use the presentation here on Sunday. We're gonna be having a study here, so I think we're gonna play the presentation and then just have a discussion around it. Because a lot of people in our townships, these communities that African people exist in, we don't know about these African martyrs. Because they don't like their stories don't frequent the TV, the television and radio. Today is the 60th anniversary of the colonial assassination of Malcolm X. And I'm sure here in South Africa, if you go on TV, you're not going to see anything about that. And for someone like Malcolm X, he doesn't have to be born in South Africa for the media in South Africa to recognize his significance. He was a global figure. Malcolm X was a global figure. He influenced, freedom fighters all over the world. I'm in South Africa and I'm speaking about Malcolm X. And actually, in high school, the history students, they like right now, because I'm a teacher, and I don't teach history though, but I talk to my colleagues who teach history, and they talk about right now they're busy with the Black Power, the topic of Black Power, and they're writing essays around that. And when they mention Malcolm X, they say Malcolm X, when he came back from Africa and in the Middle East, he changed his position on everything. In a sense, he started to preach desegregation and let's love everybody and things like that. A distortion of what Malcolm X stood for. Especially when you look at the last speech that Malcolm X delivered, like maybe a week before he was assassinated or something. It was so profound, Luwezi, so profound. You can see the science there. You can see the tactics and strategies from Malcolm X, broadening this whole thing beyond the civil rights movement to say that we have to consolidate the struggle of Black people throughout the Americas and, like build the bridge between Africa and America and, the colonized people all over the world. So he was on another level. He was not talking about that desegregation stuff and whatever, but then that's what the textbooks say about Malcolm X. I just wanted to, this is something that has bothered me for a number of years working in these institutions as Chiluezi. And yeah, I'm just grateful also that I don't teach history because I'm sure my students were gonna fail because I wasn't gonna be able to teach that stuff. So yeah, Uhuru, I want to firstly, as Chiluezi, salute you as my direct leadership and salute all the members of the National Central Committee of the African People's Socialist Party, and especially salute the leader of the International African Revolution and the Uhuru Movement, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And I think this is a very important day, and it's a national holiday, if we may put it that way, for the entire African nation. This is the African Martyrs Day. And all African people should start doing more for this day. As much as we see African people all over the world celebrating Christmas Day, the 25th of December, which is has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. It's just a bourgeois capitalist holiday that's there to milk the poor people dry, and to create confusion and people to pacify the masses so that people don't have to fight. So we have to recognize leaders such as Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Steve Biko, Lumumba, everyone that you just mentioned, as Luwezi. And I will not, reiterate that whole presentation because it was just brilliant. But what I want to talk about is um, the continued, uh, how do I say it? I don't know. It's like the continued creation of martyrs, in the African world, especially due to neocolonialism. So there's more African people still getting martyred under the colonial boot of white power and in blackface on the African continent right now, and in South Africa, because I just want to focus on South Africa especially. And if you look at South Africa, there's a lot of African people that die under colonialism, and even from the birth of colonialism. And these should also be considered, and they are considered as martyrs within the Uhuru movement. When in 1652, when the Dutch traders first, stationed themselves in what's now referred to as Cape Town, they call it the Cape of Good Hope. And this is telling for them to say it is the Cape of Good Hope. It speaks to the fact that Europe was a very undesirable place to live in. It was a place that people required some type of hope. It was a miserable place to live in, and that's why they had to refer to our Africa at the tip of the African continent here, the Cape there as the Cape of Good Hope. Because they saw hope in beyond this feudal, warring tribe type of society that they were living in Europe. All the murder that was happening there, like as Chairman always says, that half of the population in Europe dying from a plague. So that was the type of situation that the white people came from. And when they came here, they could speak about the Cape of Good Hope. But then that Cape of Good Hope for African people was, was turned into a nightmare, because there's this narrative that's always pushed here by colonizers to say that when they come here, the seizure of our land was a peaceful transaction that took place, but that's not true. Like you already cited the Battle of Isandlwana, the Luwezi, where we fought off the British, and there were many other battles that were fought here, and we initially won them, but eventually got defeated, and that's why we are here today. And including the Khoisan people, the Batwa Lebaroa, over there in Cape Town, millions of them were murdered, for them to build Cape Town as we know it right now, this place that, white people have created for their own comfort there at our expense. Millions of the Khoisan people fought. There are many wars that are on record of resistance against colonial occupation since 1652, and through the 17th century, we fought. Some of these wars are referred to as the Xhosa Wars. There's lots about 8 Xhosa Wars and so forth. And even in the 1800s, until the consolidation of South Africa as a state, so we've been resisting, fighting, and there was no peaceful transaction. This land of ours in Africa was taken through brute force, colonial murder. Millions of people died in that process, and they don't want to acknowledge that today, and they get alarmed by some um, legislative act, which is just a pretense, and it doesn't say anything about African people actually getting our land back from the colonizers. And apparently, in South Africa, we got independence in 1994. And funny enough, in South Africa, they never refer to the 1994, uh, you know, a period as some type of independence. They say is the democratic dispensation. That's how they refer to it. You'll hear talking the like the reference to Ghana as the Ghana independence, and in the 1960s, Congo independence, Zimbabwe independence. But when it comes to South Africa, there's no talk about independence. It's always about this democracy, which was negotiated in the 1990s. And what they did is in 1995, they established something called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the TRC. And in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, they brought these, white um, colonial servants, ground forces that were there to carry out the colonial policy of murdering African people and to come and confess some of the atrocities that they committed. And when they did that, uh, you know, so remorseless, none of them speaks about, oh, I feel bad about what I did and things like that. I was like, hey, I was just doing my duty. I was doing what I had to do, including, is it Pete Botha, the last president of South Africa before FW de Klerk, who, unbanned the so-called liberation movements and released political prisoners, and became a deputy president to Nelson Mandela. Because some people don't know this, that when Nelson Mandela became the president, his deputy was an apartheid guy, FW de Klerk, together with Thabo Mbeki, so they shared that in, and they had this negotiated settlement. So in 1995, with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, it was not justice for African people. They were just, just making us to relieve all the pain that we did and showing no remorse for that. And most of them did not even get arrested. They never got arrested, and actually, to make it worse, in 1993, they murdered Chris Hani, And actually, the murder of Chris Hani, who was a member of the South African Communist Party and the ANC, as a matter of fact, um, one of the progressive forces from that those neo-colonial organizations. He was murdered in 1993, and the guy who murdered him, Janus Walus, he was convicted and jailed in prison until he was released on medical parole in 2022. You know, when the attacks on the Uhuru movement were taking place, he was released, and I think he's a Polish guy, and then he was transferred to Poland. He's now in Poland, and they did an interview with him, and he says if he could get a chance, if the same circumstance or conditions present themselves, he would do it again. He has no remorse, and he feels that black people should not govern ourselves as Africans because we are incompetent. Look at what is happening in South Africa, and he was just explaining how he did it. He shot him in the torso and things like that, and no remorse whatsoever, and he got released. This guy, but there's still political prisoners who were people who were jailed during apartheid, fighting against the apartheid government, and they're still in prison today in South Africa. But this guy who killed Chris Hani, one of their own, comrades, he got released. And Chris Hani was one of the guys who did not want the the military wing of the ANC to be disbanded, and but then they did that anyway, and then they said no, we don't want to fight, and we just want to have this negotiated settlement. And part of the negotiated settlement is part of the agreement was that they had this thing called the sunset clause. Sunset clause to say that white people, we're not going to bother you with issues around land or wealth and anything like that. All we want is the vote and to go into government. And then the rest shall follow. And we're going to give you a period of 5 years without talking about this, without any mention about the land, anything like that. And the guy who came up with this idea is Joe Slovo, who was a leader of the South African Communist Party that Chris Hani, who got murdered, was a member of. And up to date, more than 70% of the agricultural land is still in the hands of the colonizers, and they believe that they're entitled to that land. And also more than 80% of the land in general, because usually when they speak about the land, they're just referring to uh, to to agricultural land. But then the question of land is broad, is beyond that. They don't talk about the mines, the minerals, and the wealth that has been accumulated over the years in terms of the infrastructure and the industry and the means of production. They don't talk about that. They limit it to agriculture and suggest that we should not get our land back because black people are not interested in farming, which is a lie. It's a lie. It's not true. Even in the townships, every other uh, like family within this community has a garden, and some of them, have these plots, within the community where they go and plow corn and things like that. So we do agriculture, and there's even some business entrepreneurs or African entrepreneurs that are involved in agriculture, but then they always come up with this thing that we are not interested in agriculture. But also considering that it's Africans that are working in those in those farms today. The white man is not doing any job there. He just owns the land. As much as we are also working in the farms, we are working in the factories and all these other places. So it's all a lie. And there's lots of African people that get murdered, you know, um, in those farms in a humiliating way. Some of them are put in coffins and then they lock them in there to die. And some get shot, and then they say, "No, I thought it was a baboon there." This is happening now in South Africa as we speak. African people getting murdered, and I also want to mention the fact that there's a lot of unsung heroes that continue to be martyred in South Africa, members of and leaders of grassroots organizations like the Amatiba Crisis Committee. They're always getting hunted down because they're fighting against these parasitic mining companies from Australia and Canada and US and all these other places, protecting their whatever that's left of our land over there in the wild coast. Some of the leaders have been murdered there. Some of the leaders of the Abahlali basemjondolo, I'm referring to grassroots organizations, things that don't even make it to the media. We see them on social media. We see them because we engage with some of these people, some of these activists within these communities that get killed by the colonial police, and some of these, assassins, hitmen that get sent to eliminate them because they're an obstacle to the deals that the ANC is making with these multinational corporations to continue the loot of our land. And also,
Left.
some of the Uhuru,
You got 2 minutes left, comrade.
yeah, I'm sure I'll be done within 2 minutes. And also, we also want to salute a brother called Andris Tatane. He was killed by the South African police in 2011, and he was killed on television. By the way, he was shot in the chest. He was a mathematics teacher, a community activist, and they killed him, and there was no justice for him and his family. And also in 2012, we should not forget 34 mine workers who were gunned down by the South African police under the ANC government. Actually, the guy who is the president now, Cyril Ramaphosa, he referred to those protesters as, you know some, like, as hooligans or something like that, and he said that they should take concomitant action against them, and then 34 mine workers end up getting murdered. And I also want to mention that in during the COVID pandemic, um, in the first few weeks of the lockdown in South Africa, there were more people who were dead, who died from the police and military, um, violence, than those that had died from the virus itself. And they're saying that they have the lockdown to protect us from the virus, but then they kill more people than the virus is killing. And these are also African martyrs that we should also acknowledge. So the murder continues, and I limited my discussion or my presentation to South Africa, but then this is happening throughout the African continent. So we salute the African martyrs, and we say that they did not die in vain. I love that song, as Luwezi, that played here, and so we have to win, and we will win in our lifetime, in Chairman Omali Yeshitela's lifetime. Uhuru.
Well, Director Tafarie, thank you so much for this brilliant presentation. As you all have heard, he just gave us some of the names. Of course, the list is does not limit itself to the names he shared with us. Just the time we have, and this question of African Martyr is something we need to revisit, not just on 21st, but I think we need to build that institution to commemorate African Martyrs. Is so profound, really profound for our people to know our martyrs and to understand the concept of martyrdom. That is critical. So our next speaker is now the president of International People Democratic Movement, INPDAM, is based in San Diego, and is a powerful leader of INPDAM. It's comrades Massimila Orden. Whoa, comrade.
Uhuru. I'm really excited to be a part of this presentation today for a couple different reasons. Actually, I'll get into that. But I'm Matamela Odom, International President of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. I'd like to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the leader of the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru Movement. I'd also like to salute the organizers of this event. I want to salute my panelists, co-panelists, the host, Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa. I want to salute as well Director Tafarie Mugeri and Occupied Azania. And like I said, I'm very excited to be a part of today's event because of the fact that, today is the 60th anniversary of the martyrdom of Malcolm X. It's also the 100th year anniversary this year of Malcolm X's birthday, of Patrice Lumumba, of Robert F. Williams, and I want to say, if I'm correct, Amilcar Cabral. But I have to get that last one correct. But this is an important moment, and it's an important moment for us to hold these people up because we want to not just remember their deaths, but to live like them. I really liked what everyone had to say up to this date. Of course, the long history of struggle. Even you see this T-shirt, this sweatshirt I got. You get this on Impedance website. Say Garvey did because they didn't believe in us, but Garvey did. So we holding up this history of struggle because this is also African History Month, Black History Month in the United States, and oftentimes we have to wait till August for the Black August commemoration to talk about this history of struggle because the African petty bourgeoisie has turned African History Month simply into a celebration of African colonial capitalist achievements, and trust me, I mean, I salute Carter G. Woodson and the movement he put forward, recognize it as an anti-colonial and even insurgent movement to place the hands of African history into the hands of place African history into the hands of African people. But what Director Tafarie was talking about is absolutely correct, right? You get inventors, you get people who flew to the moon and things like that, or whatever, not to the moon, but into outer space and things like that, and it's essentially a sort of integrationist sort of how we can celebrate Africans as being on par with colonial capitalism. But as Malcolm said, who are they to be equal to? I really appreciate what Director Tafarie did because, especially with what he talked about with the Cape of Good Hope. There's an excellent book came out a few years ago. Chairman put me onto it. It's called Born in Blackness by a guy named Howard French. And what Howard French does, especially in the first couple of chapters of that book, is what African internationalism has done, is to take Africans from being a footnote to a centerpiece in world history, in the creation of a central world economy. And we know that there was a guy named Bartolome Diaz. He was the first European to travel around what became known as the Cape of Good Hope, but as a part of the European assault on Africa over 500 years ago. But as Tafarie says, channeling Malcolm X, I don't know if he did that intentionally, but he said that that was not a Cape of Good Hope for African people, right? So that's channeling Malcolm's understanding that for African people, we didn't have an experience of the American dream. All we've have experienced is an American nightmare. To me, that's a really important thing because, see, Malcolm X was an African internationalist. Malcolm X was a historical materialist and a dialectical materialist. And it's important for us to claim Malcolm X as such because of the fact that it's Chairman Omali should tell in so many different ways, thing that brought me to this party, that so many different aspects of the party's platform, African internationalism, takes up the legacy of Garvey, of course, but also takes up the legacy of Malcolm X. I mean, that people love to talk about, like you said, Malcolm's shifting position on white solidarity, but even in that sense, I don't think it necessarily was actually a shifting position in overall objectives. I think tactically he understood. You see some shifts, but nevertheless, when we talk about the role of white solidarity movement, it's Chairman Yeshitela, the only person who organizationally placed that into a true organization, and things as such. So I just want to say this: the African Martyrs Day is more than just a memorialization of the death of our martyrs. It's also a call for people to live like our martyrs. It's in this sense that today's event is of political importance. It underscores the historical mission of the African People's Socialist Party to revive and complete the African Revolution of the 1960s. February 21st is the anniversary of the assassination of Malcolm X, arguably the most significant African leader in the U.S. since the heyday of Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Associations and African Communities League in the first quarter of the 20th century. Because what happened under Malcolm that had been diffused following the Garvey movement was that sort of a mass movement led and controlled by the African working class. That's what the Black Power movement represented. That's what the Uhuru movement represents, and that's what Malcolm's leadership really underscored, especially with his own personal and family connections to Garvey, but also his ideological and organizational connections to Garvey. Malcolm, I just want to say that. There's so much more that can be said, but African Martyrs Day was adopted in 1981 by the party, but we see origins of the call for such a day as early as 1977. It was on May 19th, 1977, that Chairman Omali Yeshitela had spoken at an event honoring the birthday of Malcolm X in a speech entitled "Long Live Malcolm X, Revolutionary Martyr and True African Internationalist." And here's an excerpt of that. The chairman said, "Malcolm X was a socialist and a Black revolutionary. And although I imagine he must have participated in commemorative programs such as this one during his lifetime, he did more than that. He lived struggle and revolution. He acted out his belief in his belief in the right for African people to live in dignity, determining our own fate, and controlling our own destiny. He was not someone who just popped up on posters, or he was not just a nice guy, voted most popular by some Black fraternity or sorority. He was a Black socialist and anti-colonialist, African internationalist revolutionary. Can you embrace that? Can you commemorate that? Can you pay homage to all that? I hope so, because that is what Malcolm X was all about. If you want to get the full speech, you can go to theburningspear.com, and we might even be able to place that into the chat. But it's important to take that out to the people as we commemorate Malcolm between today, the 60th anniversary of his martyrdom, and May 19th, later on this year, with the celebration of his birthday, which also is the birthday of Ho Chi Minh and Yuri Kochiyama. And that whole week, really take that whole week. That's what I really loved about, the period of which I came up in as a young child in the 1980s, when we would celebrate everything from Malcolm to African Liberation Day. It's a whole week of a struggle for African liberation. But the imperialists killed Malcolm X and many other leaders in an attempt to push African people out of revolutionary struggle. We instead raise up their examples as revolutionary standard to fight until our freedom is won. The African People's Socialist Party calls on all us. The African People's Socialist Party calls on all countries to raise high in a revolutionary manner the heroic memory of the fallen martyrs, of all those in every city, village, community, country where they have fallen. where they have where there are fallen martyrs, all those in every village, city, community, and country where they failed, as evidence of determination of our people to fight every battle on every front until liberty has been won. So at the first, as we heard already today, at the first Congress of the African People's Socialist Party held in Oakland, California in September 1981, a resolution was passed that marked the significance of Malcolm X in the struggle for the liberation of our people. The APSP reprinted the resolution in the pages of the Burning Spear, as well as on the APSP website, to initiate this tradition that is important for advancing our struggle. So now what I want to do is I want to read the resolution as I pass it back to Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa. It says, the struggle of African people to liberate our national homeland and to overthrow the system of imperialism and advance the cause of world socialism has seen hundreds and thousands of people make the ultimate heroic sacrifice, the sacrifice of life itself. The history of our resistance has been written in blood and flames. It has been punctuated by the courageous examples of such martyrs as Nat Turner, Steve Biko, Patrice Lumumba, Walter Rodney, Nihanda Nyakasikana, Fred Hampton, and Mark Clark, Amilcar Cabral, and of course, Lawrence Mann, co-founder of the African People's Socialist Party. Historically, the oppressors of African people have attempted to turn history upside down and present the heroic examples of our freedom fighters as evidence of the futility, the hopelessness of our cause for political independence, African liberation, and world socialism. In many instances, our oppressors have succeeded in demoralizing great numbers of our people by using the examples of brutally murdered African freedom fighters to prove the invincibility of imperialism and the permanence of African oppression and exploitation. The African People's Socialist Party rejects and denounces this reactionary view of the bourgeoisie and calls on all African revolutionaries of all countries to proclaim February 21st, the anniversary of the 1965 imperialist assassination of Malcolm X, as the Day of the African Martyr. The African People's Socialist Party calls on all African revolutionaries of all countries to take command of the history of our people's struggle for political independence, African liberation, and socialism by taking command of the definition of that history and resistance. The African People's Socialist Party calls on all African revolutionaries of all countries to raise high, in a revolutionary manner, the heroic memory of all our fallen martyrs, of all those in every city, village, community, and country where they fail as evidence of the determination of our people to fight every battle on every front until liberty was won. The African People's Socialist Party calls on all revolutionaries of all countries to initiate special ceremonies and programs in every community where an African revolutionary has fallen, and to raise the memory of our fallen freedom fighters to its proper revolutionary and historical significance. The African People's Socialist Party calls on all party members to win the masses within the U.S. and all mass organizations where the African People's Socialist Party has influence to unite with this resolution. We call on every party unit and region organization to take out this call to the masses and to actively work to institutionalize February 21st as the Day of the African Martyr. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Uhuru, President Masamela Odom, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And I'm sure everyone who was listening, people are taking notes, so they can go back to their bases to deepen all the things they ever heard. So I want to thank you so much for the contribution just made in making these African Martyr Days a great event. We're going to move the agenda now. Now we are going to basically invite you to make sure you are in front of a computer or TV or wherever you are. Tell your friends that they can't miss this presentation. Continue to share, continue to like, because I'm going to introduce the leader and founder of this movement. But when I say leader and founder of this movement, is the leader who has solved, continue to solve most of the most critical questions left unresolved from the revolution of the 60s. I'll take just one to begin with, the question of philosophy, ideas, a body of thought, consistent body of thought to explain what's happening to us and also how we're going to get out of it and what we're going to put in place. Just to have a theory, you can say, we can call African internationalism. It's just profound, way profound, because everyone knows, particularly if you're old enough, we started everything trying to see what other people said. This is not to just say we're negating everything else. No, we just say we have a theory that explains our situation from the beginning, and also explain the real contradiction to all people of the planet, that is colonialism as a monoprotection. It's profound, way, way profound. It doesn't matter if you're militant or you're some organization or you're an academic. You want to explain the world, you cannot do it with African internationalism. And this is the creation, the contribution, not just to African Revolution, to the world history, to all colonized people around the world, and to any freedom-loving, anyone who wants to see a better world, a new world, have to study African internationalism. So Chairman has done that. He's the founder of the Burning Sphere. If you look for newspapers from the 60s, you're looking for some kind of continuity, you won't find newspapers from the 60s that are revolutionaries and going on strong up to date. You don't see that. And the Burning Sphere, he's the one. He's the oldest, not just Black Revolution newspaper, I'm sure, I can say that, the oldest revolutionary newspaper. He has solved the question of white people, mysterious white people. With African internationalism, they're not mysterious. Everything can be explained, and Chairman explained that. He has worked out through the presentation he made in terms of strategy and tactics. He made in 1977, I think. But no, the creation of the Solidarity movement began before that, because I know Commander Penny was recruited in the APAC in 1976. So he has solved the question of the role of white people in African liberation movement, the question of solidarity. And today we can talk to white people anywhere inside your precious nations and know exactly what the role of white people is, and removing racism, out of the way. Chairman has led just the latest period, just what I'm talking about, is the defeating the government, the FBI attack on the 29th of July against our movement, against the African Revolution, and brilliantly laid out strategy from day one that made the victory that we celebrated, a few weeks ago, when the court, the judge, said no fine, no dime. That was a profound leadership Chairman has provided. And he traveled extensively, going everywhere, looking for Black people, Black revolutionaries that he can win to a single project, to African plan, African Socialist International, so we can work together as one people, so we can win our freedom as one people. So the contribution of Chairman is just, it's a lot. We can do a whole program just on that. So I want you just to welcome the leader of African Revolution, the leader of the struggle to create a new African a nation free, liberated from colonialism as a mode of production, and free and liberated from all kind of opportunism. And that is Chairman Omali. Oh, Chairman.
Uhuru, thank you so very much, Comrade Secretary General Luwezi. I would like to express appreciation for the introduction and for much of what you've had to say up to now. I want to also express my appreciation to Comrades Masa and Tafarie for the presentations that you've made, and everybody who's participated in making this significant event possible. I think that it is something worth mentioning that this was a resolution that was passed at the first Congress of the African People's Socialist Party. The Congress itself was of tremendous significance because you weren't seeing African revolutionary organizations who were having congresses. In fact, at one time I had assumed that the African People's Socialist Party had the first Congress, but I'm reminded that there was a Congress held prior to that by the African People's Party that happened in Philadelphia. But the basis for the significance of this is that up until the founding of our party, most of the activity that the African movement was involved in was based on spontaneity. That the 1960s came into being as a kind of an explosion of work and activity that different organizations inside the United States and various parts of the world were involved in to win what was loosely characterized and sometimes fiercely characterized as freedom or liberation and what have you. But what that meant was another question. When we say that it was a movement, the revolution came about as a consequence of spontaneity, it's not a statement that nothing was planned or people didn't try to plan things, because people did think they were doing great jobs at planning, and sometimes planning particular events were something that were done with a tremendous amount of efficiency. But when we talk about spontaneity, we're talking about something that takes us to what end? What end? What is all of this stuff we're doing all about? And for that to occur, it requires a revolutionary theory. It requires some generalized assumption of the place and activity of people in society, the destiny of human beings in society. And for that to be meaningful, it has to be more than something biblical, where we can say that somebody went on a mountain and prayed, or somebody had chicken bones and scrambled them this way and it informed them of this or that, or even other means. There has to be some approach scientifically to understanding the world. And this is something that we fought for. And when I say we fought for it, I'm talking about even during the 1960s, because one of the things that impacted us very seriously in the 1960s, as we were fighting for our liberation, for freedom, as we had made a leap beyond this understanding that had been provided to us by priests and preachers and other people who just wanted to do good in general terms around the world, who wanted to make America a better place. Our intent was not to make America a better place, but to make African people free. And whatever it took to make African people free is that which informed what it is that we should be doing. And the fact is, we could not, and the more we investigated, the more we came to understand that this America that people wanted to make better, something came into existence as a part of the process of taking away and keeping African people from being free. So the objective could not then be to make America a better place. It had to be making African people free. And that took us in a whole different kind of trajectory. And it forced us to also have great contests with people who had characterized themselves, and groups that characterized themselves as our friends. They call themselves communists and leftists and Marxists, et cetera. And we considered ourselves in that camp, generally speaking, because we wanted a different kind of society. We weren't just talking about somebody being free. We weren't talking about trying to create a world of people like who have been referenced in this meeting up to now, like people like Duvalier in Haiti, who was a killer and murderer and who worked for white power, or like Mobutu in Africa. It wasn't good enough just to be Black. It wasn't good enough just to attain what some people might call some kind of freedom or independence in this limited space that was given to us by our oppressors. What the hell is this freedom about? This freedom had to provide a whole different way of life, a capacity for human beings to grow our own capacity, to grow our humanity, to be able to feed, clothe, and house ourselves based on our own resources. And so this is the kind of thing that we came into being as an organization attempting to achieve. And we looked at, we were part of the civil rights movement. I came out of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. That helped me tremendously, because it was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that represented this bridge, as we've said before, between the civil rights movement and the struggle for power, the anti-colonial struggle for power, the civil rights movement was something that tried to integrate into America, et cetera. That was the objective that it was based on. But the SNCC said that we had to have power. We had to have Black power. It came to that conclusion. It didn't come to it easily. It didn't come to it with an absolute unity in terms of what that meant, but there was a whole different trajectory, because no matter how many different positions that might have emerged from that thing, the fact is we're talking now about power, Black power. That was the thing that was that had actually breached this ideological barriers that was imposed on us, because our colonizers are responsible for, would be responsible how we understand the world. And that's one of the reasons we have to talk about martyrs today, because the reality is that the present that we occupy today is something that rests upon a foundation of slavery, of colonialism, and what have you. It didn't just pop up the way it is. We're talking about political prisons. Come on, Leonard Peltier just being free. We're talking about Mumia Abu-Jamal. We're talking about all these people who are locked up in prison, talking about the fact that in the United States alone, that's the number of African people who are locked up in prison. If you scour the world, look at Africa, look at what you can see in the Americas, where African people, how our treatment is, and the murder and brutality that happens to us regularly, and it's expected to be something that happens regularly. And so the emergence of what it is that we're talking about, the party, one of the things that became very clear to us is that, that we could not allow our history to be in the hands of our oppressors. Our oppressors would use our history to actually confuse us, to demoralize us, to brutalize us, to keep us from moving forward, because they could clearly show they could murder us with impunity. They slaughter us. In fact, they would slaughter us in certain ways to make sure that the consequence of the murder, the consequence of the attack that they made on us would serve to demoralize masses of African people. They didn't have to kill King the way they killed King. They could have made it look as if he slipped in the bathtub or got hit by a car in a car accident. They didn't have to murder Lumumba the way they did Lumumba, but they're setting examples. These are exemplary means by which they murder African people. And there are two aspects of that. One, actually, it's part of the same dialectic. The one aspect of that, of course, is based on the presumption of superiority of the colonizers, of the white man, the self-created, self-invented entity that's more superior than anybody on the planet Earth. And so that evidence of superiority is his capacity to bestialize the rest of us. And when I say bestialize us, I'm talking about when they would kill us and cut us up in little pieces and put us in acid to destroy any evidence of our existence, which is part of what the colonialism is designed to do anyway. When I talk about bestializing, I'm talking about how we can live in a country like the United States that brags about being this great democracy on the one hand, but can at the same time host the largest prison population in the world. And it is normal. It is not even something that white people and colonizers and even the colonized get excited about anymore, because that's the way things are. This is the system that we are contending with, and this is the foundation upon which the discussion and the struggle around martyrdom and the struggle around whether we should be free is occurring. So we were involved when the party came into existence, as I said. We came into existence partially as a part of spontaneous movement. We were in the civil rights movement. We were part of that. We saw the spontaneous development, and the people achieved different levels of clarity and development as a consequence of being involved in the movement. That's how we came to Black Power, et cetera. But today, what we did, when we created the African People's Socialist Party, we moved beyond spontaneity. We moved beyond just the thing of having a civil rights movement, which is not to say that we did not recognize the validity of struggles for democracy, or, if you will, what you characterize civil rights. But we understood that the civil rights movement that gave birth to the Black Power movement was spontaneous. Therefore, we have a new place in the world today. We have a party based on Black power, the accumulation, the acquisition, the actual capture of political power, the ability to govern, and that it must now define on what these civil rights and what these rights of democracy look like and how they should be pursued, and the outcome, what should be the outcome of this struggle. And we've created institutions, and we've created programs, and we created a resolution in our first Congress that happened 9 years after our founding, 9 years later, because the government, the United States colonial government, had been involved on a whole rampage of assassinations and killings. King dead, Malcolm dead, Panthers dead all over the place. They've killed Lumumba, they've overturned Nkrumah. 9 years later, because we had no experience, because we're a party of African working class, we didn't have professors like we now occupy our ranks in some ways. We didn't have people who knew how to do the stuff. And then also it was because if we had announced that we're going to have a meeting to build a Congress, then and publicly to promote that, then the likelihood of it being attacked by the United States government was very real. That as a government that had FBI agents and forces like that attacking ordinary meetings in our communities where we were talking about how to feed children. We were having classes that were teaching children. And so we didn't know how to do it. And that, on top of that, the repression was so severe, we couldn't use that as a means by which we could have our Congress. So we ended up having a Congress 9 years later, and in Oakland, California. And it was a magnificent Congress. And during this Congress, we put forth this resolution in terms of African martyrs, because we felt like it was extremely important, again, to show this connection between the defeat of the African Revolution and the continuation of the African Revolution. I say defeat, I mean the military defeat, the military assault. When I say military, I'm not talking about they sent armies all the time, though they did send armies. They sent armies to Newark, they sent armies to Detroit to crush movements and things like that. When I say military, I'm talking about assassinations. I'm talking about mass arrests. I'm talking about targeted arrest of individual Africans that took us off the streets, took many of us off the streets, and arrested people and killed many different people. We don't even know how many people died. There is no record that we have access to of how many people who were involved in the revolution, how many people were martyred by this government just in the process of trying to win liberation. So this is part of what it is that we were contending with. So we built this party, and it's been a really extraordinary journey up to now, and it's been disrupted at different times. We've been attacked at different times. We've been attacked in different ways. The most recent one that people are familiar with, of course, is the July 29, 2022 attack on 7 of our properties and 7 in our homes, including my own home, including terror they waged in our communities in Florida and in Missouri during the process of attacking us, including the threat they made not only against me, but against my wife and what have you, with tanks with drones, etc. This is a democracy that's talking about doing all of this stuff, but this is the party that knows where it's going. It's not just a party to fight a particular case. Like when they charged us, they gave us an opportunity to run. They gave us an opportunity to make a deal, to sell out and say, please, boss, don't do this to us, and we'll accept less than 15 years. We'll take 5 years, 3 years, or something like that. We did none of that. And we said we are not going to sacrifice, again, recognizing the fact that this revolutionary movement of ours is a part of a continuum. We are not going to sacrifice the space, the democratic space that King died for, that Fannie Lou Hamer fought for, that Ella Baker fought for, that Fred Hampton and the rest of the democratic space, just the space to be able to register to vote, just the space to be able to run a campaign, political campaign to get into office, which is one of the reasons they attacked us, because we did that, running reparations. We're not going to sacrifice that. We're going to maintain that. We're not going to be forced underground. We're not going to have you force us to into a place that a retreat that makes it necessary for us to come back again 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years now, just to be able to be in this place where we are now. No, you threw down the gauntlet, we will fight you. And we fought you on terms that you established, because you said there was such a thing as Constitution, such a thing as the Bill of Rights, such a thing as the First Amendment. You said that. You put it in your documents, and damn it, we're holding you to it, and we're winning masses of people to that. We're not winning masses of people, white people especially, and certainly the colonized, and certainly judges to African internationalism. That's not what we're trying to do, to communism. That's not what we're trying to do. What we are saying is you made a commitment to the world and to yourself around the First Amendment. In fact, the judge, when he made this determination of whether or not we should go to prison, he said no prison time. He said, because the truth of the matter is that if it were not for this thing about having to register as a foreign agent, everything we're talking about is what? Protected by the First Amendment, free speech. That's exactly where we wanted them to have this debate on their own rules and things like that, whether they wanted to sacrifice and attack their own rules, which is a self-inflicted wound, no matter what, however else they may be able to immediately characterize that. So anyway, that's part of what it is that we were dealing with. And I just want to say, they attempted to martyr me. That's what you're talking about, martyrs, martyrdom. July 29, 2022, on Redbud in St. Louis, Redbud Avenue in St. Louis, which was notoriously impoverished and et cetera at the time, is not as notoriously impoverished today, but it was then. They intended to martyr me. They came and attacked our homes. They used grenades, flashbang grenades. They used laser targeting device on automatic weapons, et cetera, that were hitting me in the chest, with a clear statement being made to me that they would Fred Hampton me. They would kill me like they killed Fred Hampton at pre-dawn in Chicago, Illinois. But I'm here, and we are still here, and you are here. And this is a critical thing, because we learn from all of these lessons. We're not coming here just talking about martyrs and, wow, Malcolm was good and Martin was good and Nkrumah was good and Che was good, et cetera. No, we're saying that this was part of a revolutionary continuum. They were about something in the world. They were about changing the world, and that we embrace them and their memory, and we hold it up very high to win African people and the peoples of the world to continue the trajectory for liberation and emancipation of human beings that they were involved in. That's why we're having this discussion. This is not just something to say, wow, Malcolm was a good black man, or Martin was a good black man. They were those things. But the thing that made them significant, because there were hundreds and millions of good black men and good black women, all around the world. But the thing that gave them significance is that they participated in trying to lead the struggle to get us out of the circumstances we're in and to change the world. Not just explain the world, but to change the world. So that people can be free, and so that the people who produce all the value and all the wealth that you see in this world, they're not bankers. The stockbrokers don't produce a damn thing. The ones who produce the value and all the wealth are those who take up the cobalt out of the ground that's in Congo. There's those who do the work, the actual physical work to grow the economy, the laboring peoples of the world. That's who's responsible for it, and that's who has to be in power. And that's the thing, that project that we've been on for a long time, which is one of the reasons they attacked us. So we talk about, I was just almost mesmerized looking at the PowerPoint that we looked at introducing this, and we talk about Zinga and Angola, and how we don't want to forget Angola, and they won't let us forget Angola. In fact, the oppressors understand Angola in a way that is clear, that this connection with Angola should make us detest Angola, make us detest Africa, because that's the largest, the cruelest prison in the world is in Angola. It's called Angola in Louisiana, which, as I understand it, has the second largest prison population on the planet Earth, second only to the United States. And African people are locked up there, not just locked up, I mean, brutally locked up. I'm talking about even in violation of laws and things like that, that they've created as normal functioning for white people in this country, for the colonizers. They even undermine that with the treatment of African people in Angola and throughout that prison system. So we remember Angola, but we remember Angola through Nzinga. And we want to take Zinga to every prison in Louisiana and throughout this country, so that they will remember Angola differently. The oppressors will. They will not be able to gloat over our bodies, etc. And I think it's really important. We talk about African martyrs. We're talking about tracing this whole trajectory of martyrdom and how it has begun. As Secretary General Luwezi talked about 600 years ago with the attack on Africa. This has been a long-going process, and I think it's important to say that because it helps us to recognize that everything the colonizer has, everything, there's nothing that the colonizers have, not even a dream, that did not come about as a consequence of the theft of Africa, African resources, etc. And everything that the colonizer anticipates, that the colonizer wants, that the colonizer predicts and projects for his future on a personal level as well as on a group level or social level, requires the ongoing oppression, exploitation of Africa and African people, and the ongoing martyrdom of Africans left to their devices. So we're talking about having to have an ongoing anti-colonial liberation movement, which means that they're going to kill more of us. But they will kill us in the process of winning our freedom, but they will not kill us in the same fashion. In the sense that they were able to kill us in different places at different times around the world. We didn't have a single party uniting the African world together at the time. Somebody said, well, how were they able to come and do this to us in South Africa? And nothing, there was no response to that in Zimbabwe. How could they do this to us in Zimbabwe or South Africa? And there was no response to that in Ghana or some other places. And of course, there were responses, but not coordinated, organized responses based upon a commonly understood and united revolutionary philosophy. Our objective is to win that. I was impressed just the other day when I saw Leonard Peltier walk out of the prison for the first time in almost 50 years. We've worked for the freedom of Leonard Peltier and the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement for many of those 50 years. We've been in absolute solidarity with indigenous peoples in this country and around the Americas for many of those 50 years. And we've said all along when doing work with the case of Leonard Peltier, that we were not going to allow them to isolate Leonard Peltier and make his case just something around him, and whether or not he was guilty or not guilty of killing FBI agents. That the fact is that the assault on Leonard Peltier was an assault on the Lakota Nation. It was an assault on the indigenous people collectively. And just as the attack on me and the Uhuru 3 was not just an attack on me, as they would isolate this and say that it's just an attack on 3 people. but it's an attack on the African Revolution. That's why we say hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. That was something we said all along. And to look at how they would define the murder and carnage that they have been inflicted for such a long period of time, but now has escalated grotesquely of the people, Palestinian people in Gaza. And they say that they're fighting against Hamas, and it's not Hamas. It's the Palestinian people who they're making war against. But if they can just isolate them and make a good Palestinian and a good Negro and a good indigenous person as opposed to the rest of us, that's how they would treat it. But we recognize that we all live under colonial domination. And for the longest period of time, we said this has been our stance. And there's always been offered to us a different and safer stance. I remember when we did the case to free Desi Woods. This case was something we took up in the 1970s. And there was this whole struggle that we were involved in, that not only to raise up the African liberation movement, but we also in a contest with white left colonizers. And many of these white left colonizers were people who call themselves feminists. And many of them were saying that they wanted to define the struggle for Desi Woods. And Desi Woods, along with her friend Cheryl Todd, had been imprisoned because on one occasion when they left Reesville prison on foot, hitchhiking, to visit Cheryl Todd's brother, they were picked up by a white man named Ronnie Horn, who offered to give them a ride back to Atlanta, Georgia. And Ronnie Horn had one of those radios with the big antennas and what have you, and had a gun on the dashboard, and he convinced them he was a cop. And on the way back to Atlanta, he said he drove into a wooded area, and he threatened that he was going to kill them. He was going to rape them, rather. And Desi Woods fought him, and she took his gun from him, and she shot him. And she says, I shot him once, Brother Chairman, and he turned his head like this, and I thought I missed. So I shot him again, right? And so Desi was imprisoned. And it was a time where the African movement had been crushed in so many different ways militarily. The white left had decided that they could support us only on terms that they established about what it is that we should be fighting for. And they wanted to turn the struggle to free Desi Woods into a struggle for a woman's right to self-defense. And we said that's not what the struggle is about. It is about anti-colonial violence that's imposed on African people all the time. Men, women, children, everybody. And our slogan was, free Desi Woods, smash colonial violence. And they, people, they were offended by that. And some of them talked about how if you do this, nobody's going to come to defend her. Because there had been this amazing case of Joanne Little, who had preceded that. And she was in North Carolina, and she had been raped by a sheriff while he was locked up. She was locked up in a cell. And this amazing movement to free Joanne Little grew out of that. And this movement was led by what was an iteration of the Black Panther Party that was in North Carolina at this time. And everybody was able to participate because there was a right about the right for a woman to defend herself. So this was the trajectory they said we should be on. And we decided not to. And we said, free Desi Woods, smash colonial violence. And by the way, there are many people who at that time who were feminists, white women, who joined this movement because of the colonial question. And we were right then. And that's one of the things that impressed me about Leonard Peltier, because you weren't seeing any of the political prisoners talking about that they were fighting to liberate the nation. It is we who were saying that when they were talking to us that we didn't join this movement to get me or keep me out of prison. We joined this movement for the liberation of African people. And to see Leonard Peltier on the day that he was freed from that prison, and for him to stand up and say that I'm not going to quit. It's not over. And he says that it's not going to be over until the nation and the Lakota nation is free. And that was his version of Free Desert Woods' Smash Colonial Violence. And so that's where we are. I just think the whole struggle against the struggle to hold up martyrdom is extremely important. We make, if we have to die, you know, and we do. There's no way you can get out of here. Huey P. Newton used to say, you don't get out of here alive. You don't get out of life alive. But when we die, then there must be some gravity, some weight to that. It must mean something. And that it's not, we don't sacrifice this life easily. And when we die, then it has to have some impact on the world. And I think that, or our life should have had some impact on the world. And that's what we talk about when we talk about these martyrs. These are not just a name of people that we knew. They played certain roles in history, sometimes knowingly and consciously, and sometimes not consciously, and sometimes not knowingly. But those of us who are conscious, those of us who have the party, those of us who have African internationalism, we know, and it's our responsibility to transmit that and translate that for masses of people. Uhuru.
Well, Chairman, thank you so much for this powerful, splendid, as you always say, splendid presentation. That was great, Chairman. And for people who are listening, please share. We want people to hear this. This is fundamental, as you heard the chairman saying it. It's not just we are trying to talk to you about this at this very time, but we have a long-term plan, you know, towards what's ahead. You heard the chairman talking about. We want to complete the revolution. We want to complete the revolution. We want the African nation to be united. We want the African workers to come to power. We want the borders to be removed so we can be from south to north, from east to west, Africa to be one. And we want to build a new economy that will include all Africans on the planet. You know, 2 billion people, there is nothing we cannot do. And so this is what you're looking at. So thank you, Chairman, for this brilliant presentation. We're going to go to resources. I'm self-critical. I should have introduced resources well from the beginning. So throughout the program, people could be giving resources. So what we're trying to get today to our goal basically is a modest. We're calling for $300, which if we are 300 people watching on the internet, you know, YouTube and you know, all other medium, you know, that will be like $1 each. You know, if more than that, you know, it should be easy to achieve. So I'm calling everyone to donate so we can achieve this goal very quickly. $300. As you see, we want to build these martyrdoms as an institution. We want to be able to do programs throughout the world, you know, from South Africa to the Caribbean, Europe, and the US, and Brazil, all those places. And to do that, we definitely need to develop this institution so every Black community knows about African Martyr Day, but also have the time to research, to dig out, to find out, you know, all the martyrs we lost through battles, all kind of battles, because we resisted in the last 600 years. That's a lot of martyrdom there. So $300. These are goal. And to donate, you just have to go to apsuhuru.org/donate. This where you can donate. And I said again, our goal is $300. And let us know when you have donated, so it gives us to do the account so we can report back to you quickly to see where we are, what we have achieved so far. So we are open. $300, brothers and sisters and comrades, wherever you are. Support the African Martyrdom, support the African Martyr Days. Please donate. I want to thank you. President Masamela is the first to open the donation. with $50. That takes us to $250. So we have basically achieved 1/6 of our goal. So 5/6 to go. Wherever you are, comrades, you can go to apspo.org/and-donate to contribute to the African Martyr. African Martyrs fund, I will call it, because we need to build a more powerful Martyr Day next year, and you will contribute towards that goal. You will contribute in taking the African Martyrdom everywhere, because we want it to be a worldwide commemoration, celebration, organization, a process where Africans will come together and we can begin to find out, deepen this question of martyrdom, so the Africans can be equipped. No brutality of the oppressors will deter us from our road to complete the African liberation. Freedom, nothing else will do. Africa unification, nothing else will do. African working class with the Marcus Garvey flag, the red and black and green on the top head of Africa, nothing else will do. You, by making a contribution today, by donating today, you are contributing to that process. So we are looking forward to contribution, so we can definitely complete the program of today. So, comrade, keep the donation coming. And what I would like to do, if it's possible, because I have another section I have to go through, but while the donation is coming, is that possible to go through some of the announcements I can make? Because I know if we do that, that will remove the slide of the donation off the screen, I think. Okay. So, okay. Okay, you moved it already. Okay, so we can move, back and forth between the two. As you know, as we contribute towards the appeal for resources. Remember, our goal is at $300. We have now $500. You can go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. That's where you should be sending your funds. In the meantime, we have announcement. We would like you to write down, at least to know how we're going to move. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, we are calling everyone, because we talked about revolution. You heard it. You heard the chairman talking about what we're doing towards what's end. The final determination of our conditions under colonial mode of production will determine by our ability to carry out and to complete a united African people's revolution and the leadership of the party. You can't make the revolution to end the colonialism as a mode of production, to put the African working class to power. You can't consolidate African self-determination without the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. And that's what we're calling you to join. You can join today if you go to apsp.uhuru.org/join, apsp.uhuru.org/join. Or
apsp.uhuru.org.
Yes.
And as you know, every day, every week, we organize the African resistance, the African fighting back under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. So we have plenty of events. The next one you can't miss is it's not just Trump, it's the whole damn system. And this is organized by African People's Solidarity Committee. As you know, that's the Solidarity Committee that works on the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. And you're going to have a wonderful program with the Chairman Omali, the chairman of African People's Socialist Party, with Honor Zeni Yeshitela, the president of African Peoples and Education and Defense Fund, and the Peniers, the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee. Put the dates in your diary. Wednesday, February 26, 2025. Wednesday, February 26, 7:30 Eastern Time, 6:30 Central Time, 4:30 Pacific Time. And share the information, and look forward to see you there on Wednesday 26. You can register if you go to if you go to apscuhuru.org/register. apscuhuru.org/register. Uhuru. And on Saturday, the 1st of March, we have another exciting program. Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa is an online event celebrating victory for Leonard Peltier and Uhuru Free. And that's a program you cannot miss. You see unconditional solidarity with the indigenous people in practice. So join this program on Saturday, March the 1st, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central Time. And for this, basically, it's a place to register. It doesn't say where you can register, but it's an online event. If you go to handsoffuhuru.org, you'll probably find out more information about it. Or another event is a big event as well. National Convention, Uhuru Solidarity, White Solidarity with Black Power. Join the growing movement, solidarity with African and indigenous, Palestinian and oppressed peoples. No more genocide in our name. This event is coming up. That's a call if you're white, basically to join the movement. And there is something also is critical that more white people who are fed up with the system, who are dissatisfied with the system, and we want to be in solidarity for Black people, with all indigenous and colonized people, like Palestinian people. We're calling for wide solidarity for Black power. Join the movement. And as you know, we say that throughout the meeting, the Burning Spear is the oldest revolutionary newspaper in the world. And there is a newspaper you can't go without. You can subscribe, you can pre-order the March issue, and get your spear today. Go, if you want a bundle, if you want to, buy a bundle basically of a Burning Spear newspaper, go to the burningspear.store. If you want to subscribe, go to burningspear.com/subscribe. So basically 2 things you can do. To pre-order the March issue, you can buy a bundle. For your bundles, go to burningspear.store. If you want to subscribe, go to burningspear.com/subscribe. And this way you can get your Burning Spear. So we're handsoffuhuru.org coalition, Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition, build the anti-colonial free speech movement. As we said, it's not over yet. Chairman said it, Leonard Peltier also said it. And for you to join, simple, go to handsoffuhuru.org, you can join. handsoffuhuru.org/coalition. You can definitely be a member today of this coalition. You can also support by going to handsoffuhuru.org/ and donate. Yes, we're support the annual Liberation Center rehabilitation. Can we make this a bit bigger? I can't really read it properly.
Uhuru, this is just an announcement for people to go to the burningspear.com/events for future events.
Okay. All right. Thank you, President Masamela. So I'm sure donation keep coming. I don't know if we can get an update, but where we are now, basically, we just read some announcement, and while we are giving people space opportunity to contribute, our goal is $300. And I'm sure some people watching this from Facebook or from TikTok or from YouTube, so we can't see what donations are. But this I go $300. Anyone else has come forward that we need to share that with our viewers, with our people here, please let me know. But this I go $300. And we want to build a bigger, a better African Martyr Days next year. And so we go 365 days, and we can make it bigger with your contribution. We want to organize it everywhere, from occupied Tanzania to Sierra Leone, West Africa, to Europe, where I'm located, to the United States and other places where our movement is. We want to have a worldwide African Martyrs Days, so we can advance the struggle for African national liberation to its full conclusion under the leadership of the African working class, led by its vanguard party, the African People's Socialist Party, comrades. So do we have any updates I can share? If not, I can advance the agenda. Is there anything? Okay. I don't see anything on the chat. So I'm going to advance the agenda. We just made some announcements, and we're going to move basically to I would like to move to the closing remarks. So just before I do that, is there anything else I need to know, to share in terms of resources? Nope. Okay. So I'm going to, yeah, I don't see anything in the chat. Because I don't have access to the YouTube and the TikTok, other people like that.
Uhuru, Comrade S.G. Luwezi, did you get the notification of a $100 contribution from me and the deputy chair? I was having problems making it happen, online.
No, I didn't see that, but thank you, Chairman, and this order. You say $100, right?
Combined, yes.
Combined, yeah, that makes 150. So I'm gonna make a contribution of $50. That takes us to $200. So we just short of $100.
What did we say? What are we hearing out there?
That makes that $200.
He says he donated 35.
There was 35 donated from Comrade Ruby.
Okay, 235. So short by 65.
And Comrade $20 Comrade Stephanie.
25. Okay,
Yeah.
that basically $40 now, short. 45.
You might already have that. What are you saying?
I don't know. No one has access to the.
100, 150, 125, 160, 260, yeah. Okay, so if someone can donate, I think $40 or two people donate $20 each, we can close this section. We can move on. Let me just make sure what I'm saying makes sense. We go 100. We go. Okay, Muezi, that $50. I think we might have it. Let's see. That's 150. 150.
305.
We fine. 175. Ruby. Yeah, I think we are fine. Yeah. We have met our goal. That works. Okay, thank you to everyone who has contributed towards the $300. Appreciate that. I want to thank to everyone. I think we exceeded that. I see Comrade Penny also has only $50. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Comrade Churibu, Penny, Chairman, Edisiona, Comrade Luwezi, Comrade Stephanie, Masamela, and Ruby. We have made it. I appreciate that, Comrade. Together, there is nothing we can do. So let's move the agenda. I think that's closing remarks. Chairman, I don't have anything really much to say. Just honored to be here, part of this program. And I think the question of martyrdom is really critical. It's a part of changing the mind of our people so they can be one to the goals of African internationalism, to the Black Revolution, basically, knowing that we have martyrs everywhere. These should be on the street, in the classroom, in the community. It should permeate all aspects of our culture every day, you know. So that'll be something that the party is contributing to do in changing the ground, basically, with this African Martyrdom, African Martyr Day. So, Chairman.
Well, thank you, Comrade S.G. Luwezi. And again, I want to thank Comrade Tafarie and President Masamela and everybody who's participated in this meeting up to now. I think that it's important, as we've stated already, that we acknowledge our martyrs, and not in some kind of empty sentimental way, but as those forces who represent in concrete terms the actual willingness of African people to make every sacrifice to be free, that Africans will not be easily pushed into oblivion, that we will fight for our liberation. And there are people who doubt this, I know that. But what we've done is provided a platform and continue to provide that platform, not just with events like this, but the struggles that we are always involved in, and the places we're trying to take the people, that Africa can be free and must be free. And that there are people who have taken up every argument provided by the colonizers. They would tell us things like, Africa can't be united because it's not a country, it's a continent on the one hand, yet France has controlled something like 14, 15 different of those so-called countries in Africa. And nobody said there's anything unusual about that except they were oppressors. The fact is that Africa can be united under the gun. Africa can be united to get rid of the gun of the oppressors. I just think that it's really important for us to say that, and holding up the martyrs in the fashion that we've done now it gives confidence and a willingness to struggle to masses of people who do not necessarily have the kind of connections, that don't necessarily have African internationalism as a philosophy that they have embraced willingly, et cetera, but our examples and the things that we do and the lessons that we teach through African Martyrs Day will contribute surely to bringing down a system based on colonial domination, based on slavery and colonialism, and gives us the ability as a leading revolutionary force, as the advanced detachment of the African nation and the African working class, gives us the ability to create and lead a new world. And that's what we're about. And so we want to thank everybody and hold up African Martyrs Day and recognize that every square inch of the 12 million square miles of Africa must be possessed by Africans collectively, and that Africa must be united, and African people globally must be united and participate in the process of building a new world for all of us. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman. Thank you so much. So the next part of the program is can we put the video?
Afrika mobimba tokangi maboko tozali kotala tolati mokuya ata maloba te Congo na Pan-Africa baleli. Oh, Medi Ben Barka, Medi nzela na yo ya bato nyonso, Medi nzela na yo ya Lumumba, Medi nzela na yo ya Che Guevara, Medi nzela na yo ya Malcolm X, Medi nzela na yo ya Umniope, Medi nzela na yo ya Felix Mumie, Medi nzela na yo ya Nguyen Van Choi, Medi nzela na yo ya Camilo Cienfuegos, Medi nzela na yo ya Oji ya Enda, Medi nzela na yo ya Camilo Torres, Medi nzela na yo ya Abdelkader, Medi nzela na yo ya André Machua, Medi nzela na yo ya Simon Kimbangu, Medi nzela na yo ya Albert Lutuli, Medi nzela na yo ya Boganda. Oh, oh, ya tiers-monde. Oh, oh, ya libération, ya pas peuple. Un vieux, que je considère toujours jeune, m'a dit un jour: mon petit, tout homme doit mourir un jour, mais toutes les morts n'ont pas la même signification. Oh, Medi Ben